On today's show, earthworms, you and food scraps, the superpowers of electricity, and Ooze investigates balloon power, all on Hot Science.
Hi, welcome to Hot Science.
Hello.
Now, Sue, you have done some strange things in your time, but this takes the cake. What are you doing?
Well, we're going to see some really lovely patterns, but we're also going to see forces in action.
How?
Well, I've got a cup that's hanging from some string. If I tilt that up, can you see there's a hole in the bottom?
Uh-huh.
Right. Well, what we're going to do is tape that hole up, first of all, like that. And then we're going to fill the cup with some salt. I'm going to use. You could have used sugar, I suppose.
What, anything fine?
Yeah, something that'll flow out nicely through that hole. Okay.
Can I do it now?
In a moment. Let's have a look at what we've set up here. We've got the cup hanging on a string. I'll just undo that string. And that string is looped over another string. And that string is tied at both ends to a stick hanging from two chairs.
And it's suspended.
Suspended.
Now can I do it?
Okay. All right. So when you're ready, you pull the cup back
Take the
tape off and just let it swing.
Look at that.
Hey, that's a great pattern.
It looks like a fish.
Hang on, it's changing though.
Wow. Hang on, I don't understand. Sue, why didn't it go in a straight line?
Well, because the cup was connected to these strings and they were each pulling it in their own direction, and of course the biggest force was gravity, pulling the cup down towards the ground.
I understand.
Well, in fact, planets move in a similar sort of way, because a planet is actually affected by lots of different forces. The planet is spinning on its own anyway, and it's moving around the sun. It's affected by the other planets, but the biggest force of all, the biggest pull, is the sun.
So we'll never ever get to see Mars go flying past our window?
Well, I hope not. No, because it's those forces that are actually holding planets in place, but also moving them, or keeping them moving the way they are. And this model is quite a neat way at looking at some of those forces.
Friction.
Friction? Oh, that's a bit of a sticky word, isn't it, Sue?
It is, Ooze. Sticky's the right word.
Yeah.
Friction is the force that happens when two objects slide or don't slide over one another.
Oh.
Sometimes when you move two objects over one another, one doesn't move very easily.
Yeah.
It's got lots of friction.
Right.
But other times when you put two objects together, they slide very easily, and then there's not very much friction.
Ah.
In fact, if I rub parts of you,
Oh.
see, there's not very much friction there. You're all slippery.
Slimy, eh?
But friction's a very important force. We use it for stopping things like wheels. Then when you apply the brakes, the brake touches against the wheel and the friction causes the wheel to stop.
Ah.
We also use friction to do things like use inline skates like these. And as you push, the friction helps you move along. You can use friction to stop and to turn.
Whoa.
In fact, friction's very important just for things like walking. Every time you take a step, you press down and the friction of your foot against the ground gives you something to push off to take your next step. And that would have been a slippery step with all that water there. But friction also can cause some problems. We need to reduce friction sometimes, and we can do that in an experiment over here. Have a look at this box, Ooze. At the moment,
Yeah.
there's a fair bit of, well, it's not moving very easily when I give it a push.
Not really.
But I can reduce that friction by using straws like these on the table.
Right.
I've got a balloon that we need for this experiment.
Oh, great.
I know how much you like balloons.
Yeah, I love balloons.
Is that big enough?
No, a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, let's come over here then, Ooze, and
Okay.
set up our experiment. So what we're doing here is reducing friction.
Yep.
If I put the balloon through that hole in the box
Ah, what's going to happen here?
and put it on top of these straws
Yeah.
and let it go,
Right, what's going to happen?
there won't be very much friction. You ready?
Oh, yeah, okay.
3,
2, 1, go!
Wow!
Oh, nearly got me there.
There wasn't very much friction there at all.
None at all, yeah.
So friction is a very, very important force for making things go and also for stopping them.
Next, electrical energy.
Have you ever thought about electricity? I mean, it's around us all the time, but the only time we really think about it is when we need it. Like, if I want to turn on a light, I just flick a switch. Or if I want to listen to my stereo, I just have to plug it in. But did you know that electricity can be incredibly powerful and also a little bit dangerous? We've got John Sanderson in here today. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
And you have got this wonderful, rather strange-looking electrical instrument. Tell me about it.
Well, the technical name for it is an impulse generator, which basically means it's a lightning simulator.
Right, and what does it do?
Well, it simulates a bolt of lightning about that long, about 2 centimetres long.
So, like, if you're talking a huge bolt of lightning from the sky, we've only got this much of it.
It's like having a little bolt of lightning that long right here.
Right, and what are we going to do with it now?
Well, what we have, actually, the demonstration is going to look at how a high voltage can actually be very dangerous because it breaks down materials that don't normally conduct electricity. Like paper, for example, you often see signs that say danger, high voltage. The reason is a high voltage can actually penetrate things that don't conduct electricity very well normally, like you and me. And our example here is a wad of paper. Now, what we're going to do is apply about 20,000 volts of electrical energy to this wad of paper. And what will happen then is the paper will break down, the current will pass through the paper and cause the paper to be destroyed.
And we can do that now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Do I need to stand back a little bit?
I think you should stand back a little bit.
Well, John's already told me that there's going to be a bit of an explosion happening, so he's got some ear protectors, and I've got some for myself. You don't have to worry at home. We'll make sure that your eardrums don't hurt. Put them in now. Okay. Stand back a bit. Whoa! Wow! Just take my earplugs out. John, oh, there's a strong smell in the air. What happened? Ooh.
Well, what's actually happened is the electricity, as you can see, it's broken down the paper. The reason there was that little delay before the paper actually exploded was because 20,000 volts being a high voltage is still not high enough to actually break down a nice wad of paper straight away. Paper's actually quite a good insulator. It doesn't conduct electricity very well. But a very small amount of electricity starts to flow through the paper, and when it happens, it actually singes the paper, which is that little sizzling noise you might have been able to pick up. Yep. And as the paper is singed, we actually produce a bit of carbon, a bit of soot in the paper. Now, carbon is rather strange in that it actually conducts electricity very well. So once we have some soot in the paper, the electricity finds it much easier to flow through the paper. So more electricity flows through the paper, and then more carbon is produced, and so it builds up until eventually the paper breaks down completely.
And that's exactly what happened here. Well, John, thank you very much for coming in. And as we've seen with this experiment, electricity can be very powerful.
Body. Your body is tiny man, working in your brain, thinking, moving, growing, it must be quite a strain. Your body is tiny man, working in your lungs, inhaling and breathing, I find it quite relieving. Your body is tiny man. Your body is tiny man, working in your mouth, aren't you glad for tiny men working in my mouth?
What a great poem.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Isn't it nice to see people using poetry to do science?
Yeah, hey, is there really tiny people in our bodies?
No, but sometimes I wonder too, because our bodies make all sorts of funny noises, don't they?
Yeah, like when my tummy rumbles like this.
That's an awful rumble. Are you a bit hungry?
Oh, sure. Hey, speaking about being hungry, are we going to eat some dinner now? Because what's all these spoons and forks doing here?
Ah, no, this is to do some experiments on sound.
Ah.
Yes, I've got a tuning fork here. Have you seen one of these before?
Yeah, before you have.
They're used for tuning musical instruments, and if I hit it on the table, it's now vibrating very quickly. Can you see it vibrating?
No.
Okay, I'll hit it again, and maybe you'll see it this time.
What?
You just whipped me a big... It was a very big sound.
Me around a lot there.
This tuning fork was vibrating and setting up sounds. Perhaps you couldn't hear them. If I just tap it again, listen to this.
Wow. Hey, do that again. I can tune my lovely singing voice to that.
Do you want me to do it again? Just quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
This tuning fork is set for the for the note
Yeah.
A. And it's vibrating very, very quickly. You can't see it, it's hundreds of times a second.
Yeah.
But the little prongs are vibrating very quickly. And what that does is sets up vibrations in the air around the tuning fork. So the air particles vibrate, and it's those vibrations that are sound and that our ears pick up. Because the vibrations travel into our ear. The outside of our ear is just like a big funnel. The sound vibrations travel into our ear and cause the inner parts of our ears to vibrate.
Yeah.
And then there's a nerve connecting that to our brain, and our brain interprets those vibrations as sound.
Wow.
It's amazing, isn't it? Now, if you want to do an experiment with sound, you can set up something like this, with some bits of cutlery and a piece of string.
Yeah.
Okay, you've just jangling spoons at the moment. But we can turn it into a beautiful musical instrument if you just wrap the string around your fingers, put your fingers in the ears,
Right.
lean over like this, and tap the table. Now, I'm not sure, I bet you wouldn't have been able to hear much beautiful music there,
really.
but the person holding the string against their ears can hear beautiful sounds. And what's happening is the spoons are vibrating, and those sound vibrations are travelling up the string directly to my ears, so I hear quite a loud and a very deep sound, just like church bells or gongs. And that's something very simple for you to try too, so you can experiment with sound vibrations.
Have you got one of these? It's a bull roarer. If you haven't, you've probably seen one, and they're really easy to make. They're the best way to hear sound vibrations, and we're going to make one right now. All you need is a piece of wood like this, probably an old ruler would be best. All you've got to do is get someone to drill a hole just here for you, and then you need to put some string through that hole. So we'll cut some string, probably just about your arm's length, not too long. Just cut it here, and then we'll knot it through a little hole. Poke it through like that, and then knot it at the top. Make sure it's really secure because we don't want the wood flying off when we're trying out our bull roarer. That should be about right. Now, I have put a knot on this end, just a little loop, and I'll loop it through like that so that I can make a loop which will go around my wrist like that. Well, this bull roarer is ready to go. Let's go and test it out. Now, when you do try your bull roarer, make sure you've got heaps of space around you and no one close by because we don't want to hit them. Just put the bull roarer at arm's length and start spinning. Hear that? Sounds a bit like a helicopter. Let's try the bigger piece of wood, see if it makes a different sound. Loop it through my wrist. Now this is on a longer piece of string, so I'll need a little bit more space. Oh yeah, that started straight away. Hear it? It's good exercise. Oh, be careful when you bring it to a stop. I'm out of breath. Now, have you ever thought how this bull roarer makes the sound? Well, as I spin it round, the wood cuts the air. The faster I spin it, the higher the sound. And when we spun this one slowly, it made a really low sound. Now, the bigger the wood, the louder the sound. So if you want to make different sounding bull roarers, all you got to do is make them with different pieces of wood. Oh, make sure you're fit too.
The elephant is said to be the only mammal that can't jump. Just as well, imagine the sound and the holes.
Wow, wasn't that bull roarer great?
It was, Oos.
Yeah, I wish I could make one of those.
We can have a look at other sorts of vibrations, or feel them anyway, because there are vibrations anywhere there is sound.
Really?
Can I have a feel of your vibrations?
Yeah, whereabouts?
Okay, if you put your finger just gently, or fingers just gently on your throat like
Yeah.
that, can I do that to you?
Yeah, sure.
Put your head back, that's it.
Yeah, and I
Now
have to say something.
Say something nice.
Oh, okay. Sue, you're looking lovely today.
Thank you. I can feel all sorts of lovely sound vibrations from your throat.
What about if I make a singing sound or something?
Well,
Can
let
you
me
still
try
feel it
that.
then?
Okay.
Okay. Blah, blah, blah.
Oops.
Did you feel the
That's lovely.
vibrations then, Sue?
I did.
Oh,
And it's
great.
your vocal cords that are making those vibrations.
Ah.
Ooh, yuck.
Oh, yeah, look at those.
Oh, there's some vocal cords. We
Yeah.
can have a look at
Vocal
vibrations,
cords,
though. No, at vibrations.
Ah.
If we build something like this,
Oh,
what we're
what's
going to
that?
make is a sound cannon.
Sound cannon?
Yeah, and all you need is an empty tube like this, and
Yeah.
I've covered one end with clear plastic. I'm going to cover the other end with clear plastic now.
Ah.
Meanwhile, you can make some more vibrations. Would you like to do some more singing?
Oh, I could, but first, why are you covering both ends? Are you going to stick something in there?
No, what we're going to do is make some vibrations inside.
Oh, right.
Okay, how's that singing going?
Yeah, it's looking good. I've got to test my singing so I can make some more vibrations underwater too, hey?
Okay.
Hey, that's just great, isn't it? I can actually feel the vocal cords moving in my throat now that you mention it.
Oh, dear.
Wow. Hey, how you going with that sound cannon,
It's
Sue?
nearly done. Look,
Oh,
see,
wow, look at that.
I've put plastic on both ends.
Yeah.
The next thing to do is just make a hole, a small hole, maybe at the end of a match,
Bing!
like that,
Yeah.
in the end of the sound cannon.
Ah,
Okay, then I'm going to light this candle.
right. Oh.
Like this.
Oh, nearly got it. Oh, nearly got it. A little bit more. Oh,
Okay, is
there
it
we
light
go.
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shh, I might put it out if I talk too much.
And what we're going to... Don't blow on it, will you?
Okay,
What we're going to do is see the vibrations, because I'm going to tap one end of this sound cannon. The
Right.
vibrations of the sound will travel through the cannon.
Yeah.
And some of the air that comes out through this hole will cause air out here to vibrate, and you'll see the candle flicker.
Ah.
You ready?
Yep,
Here
go.
we go.
Oh. Oh, you blew it out.
There was
was
that much
great.
of a vibration.
Yeah.
So there's another neat way of looking at a sound vibration.
Next, pure fresh worm power. They're slimy, gooey, icky, yucky, and very, very squirmy. But some people love them.
Worms, such a beautiful animal, turning organic material as your kitchen scraps, your waste, animal manures, etc., into the most richest plant food in the world called worm cast. This beautiful rich topsoil is far greater than any chemical fertiliser. It's such a simple process of turning organic materials through their stomach into a rich plant food. It is so simple.
This is Wayne Fowles' worm farm. Hidden in these rows of dirt are millions and millions of wiggly little worms. To harvest them, first you have to dump compost on the dirt. Then you spray water on the whole lot to bring the worms up to the top. They come up to the surface looking for fresh food and oxygen. Once they pop their heads up, the bobcat scoops them up in the top layer of dirt and puts them safely to one side to be put to work again later. The worm poo gets put on a large conveyor belt to be sorted out. It's sifted through a large screen which separates the dirt from the fertiliser. Then the worm poo is put into bags ready to be sold. Some bags have a bonus. Sometimes little worms can fall in and help you start your own worm farm. As well as making fertiliser, Wayne also breeds the worms to sell, so people can actually try worm farming themselves.
Well, this is called light contraction. As the light touching the worms go down to the bottom. They don't like they're sensitive to the light. So every 5 minutes you take a small amount of topsoil off, wait for a few minutes, and then they go down to the bottom. And at the end you've got this beautiful pile of red meat, we call it, which is just pure worms. People purchase worms all around Australia to create beautiful soil and fertiliser from their kitchen waste and all the grass cuttings and loose and pea straw. We sell in bags of 1,000 is a minimal amount because you need 1,000 worms, which is about this here. We need 1,000 worms because worms only breed and they have a head-on collision, so you need lots of worms in a small area.
Worms are great fun. They don't need much space, they don't smell, and they won't wake up the neighbours.
Oh, yum, yum, worms!
Oh, Ooze, you couldn't eat all those worms.
Oh, I could have a good try.
Well, you could if you had your very own worm farm, and it is so easy to make.
Really?
Yeah, all you need are your kitchen scraps. You know, the food that's left over that you don't want
like
anymore?
my lunch.
Just like all the stuff in here. Yeah. Then you put it in your worm farm and it becomes this. You know what this is?
No.
It's called castings, which is worm poo.
Oh, yuck.
No, it's great for your plants.
Oh, right.
Yep, and how to do all that, to make that to that, we use this worm farm. Now, all you need for a worm farm are 4 trays, just like this. In the top one, we place all the leftover kitchen scraps. Now, in here, Sue, I think I might need you for this one. It's a bit heavy.
Great, I love food scraps.
Okay, in we go over here. Oh, look at this one. We've got some tomato and some bread, a bit of carrot. Smells a bit though. Now, over in this one, we have got lots of worms and also a bit of compost. Get my hands in. See them in there? Oh, yeah, you can see them. Let's lift this one off.
Okay, we'll put that on top of the other.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, you can see the worms down the bottom too. You see those?
Whoa, they're going to fall through.
Then in this third tray over here, we've got lots of castings and also a couple of worms in there and a few worm eggs. Oh, there's one. And that's all the worm poo. Lift this one off. All right. And in the bottom here, we've just got a lot of excess water, which you can drain out and feed to your plants as liquid fertiliser.
Wow.
So, Ooze, if you want a low-maintenance animal or a pet that is very environmentally friendly, get a worm farm.
This is our plastic wrap for you. See it, believe it, for it is true. If you don't recycle, refill and reuse, I will blow a fuse. And if you use it, don't abuse it, for surely then you will lose it. Recycle in a way that's easy for you. Once you've done it, you'll know it's true. Only throw out plastic when in vain. If you don't, then you're insane.
Quiz time!
I've got one. How do our vocal cords allow us to speak?
They vibrate and make sound waves.
That's right.
And if you do make a worm farm, why don't you see how many worms are in it after 2 months?
Oh, I reckon there'd be enough to make a worm sandwich out of those.
I've seen a recipe for a worm burger.
A worm
really?
burger? Oh, Ooze, you'd like that.
Sure would.
Now, how many worms could you eat in a day?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to give it a try, I reckon.
Well, it's time for us to go. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.